Okay, it looks like we are live. Sorry,
oh, jolly good.
Sorry about that, folks. Little technical hiccup, but we have our wonderful guest in our green room, and we're it's green room. See what I did there?
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah. So, hello, folks. Glad you're back in the game as we are.
Yep.
And we have a wonderful guest for you today. So instead of me waffling and farting about, oh, I said fart on television. Oh, let's cut to the chase, Ruth.
I think, well, everybody knows who she is. And so let's bring on, and the crowd goes wild for Hope Juber. There she is.
Good morning.
I figured out what it was. Okay.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Jolly good, jolly good. So your accomplishments are just too many to mention, and it's just I was reading about. I mean, I've always known about your background and your stuff, but trying to put stuff in the clicker was just in the ticker. I'll get this right in a minute. I'm breaking these teeth in for a hold. So I mean, literally from the gamut of child actress to record producer, playwright, mom of two incredibly talented musicians, wife to another one, and producer and performer and girl group leader. I mean, how on earth did it all begin?
She's actually 340 years old.
Yep.
She has to be.
Certainly doesn't look it.
No.
I think there are about 4 or 5 of me.
Yeah. I guess.
So how did it all begin?
Well, I grew up. Wow, I hear myself twice. Is that okay?
That's okay. It sounds okay on my end.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up with I was just hearing myself. It went away.
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. We lost her. We've been having extreme trouble with Hope with StreamYard this morning, but let me read you Hope's some of her resume while we get her back. So obviously, her first professional entertainment experience was playing a recurring role as Greg Brady's girlfriend, Rachel, on the Brady Bunch.
Oh my goodness!
Back in the day, and the circle closes with Maureen McCormick and all our buddies and those kind of friends. So that was their very first thing. And her father, of course, was Sherwood Schwartz, who created not only the Brady Bunch, but also obviously Gilligan's Island and all of those wonderful things. And there's a video a link we'll get to later in the broadcast called Gilligan's Island, which is absolutely hysteric. So after graduating college with a BA in theater, she joined her father, Sherwood Schwartz, as a writer. And then she quickly became a story editor at Paramount TV, working on sitcom.
I think I'm back.
You are back.
I went away for a while, but I'm back.
And now I'm hearing myself. So we were talking about how did it all begin?
Well, I grew up on I grew up on sets. My father was a creator. He did Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch. So I spent a lot of time when I was in elementary school. After school, I would just walk down the street to where my dad was filming Gilligan, and I would be on the sets. So I spent a lot of time around television and writing. All my uncles were writers. My dad, my brother, everybody was a writer. So when I went to college, I got degrees in acting and directing, but once I graduated, I started writing, and it just never looked back from there.
Wonderful.
How do you learn something like that?
It's part of it you can learn. You can learn techniques, you can learn formulas, but you can't really. Comedy is difficult because you either have an innate sense of the rhythm of it or you don't. And you can't really learn that. So I was very lucky to be born in a family where there was a lot of joke telling. There was a lot of that kind of humor, rhythms for jokes. And I just found myself, when I was in college, I was taking a lot of writing classes. And even when I was trying to write something really dramatic, it came out funny. So
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So you graduated college, right?
I'm sorry? I
You
graduated college?
with a BA.
Yes, in acting and directing. And I started writing immediately, and I was selling scripts and taking meetings and doing all that kind of thing. And then a big wrench in the whole thing happened because I was a big Beatle fan. I was always a Beatle fan. Right, and when John was killed, when we lost him, I stopped. I just went into a massive depression, and I didn't want to talk to anybody. I didn't want to eat. I just stopped. And my parents were getting very worried about me, and my dad said, well, maybe we should send her for therapy, and that wasn't helping. And then my mother, she called me one day and she said, I know what's going to make you feel better. Why don't you go get your hair done? And I was like, I'm having an existential depression, and my mother wants me to get my hair done. But I knew she meant well.
Yeah.
I knew she meant well, and I knew that she was trying to help. So I said, okay, hair, whatever. And so I went to get my hair done, and the hairdresser was doing my hair, and he said, why are you just so sad? There's something very sad. And I said, well, I've just been extremely depressed ever since John was killed. And he said, well, I have one more client. Why don't you go downstairs, walk around the block once, I'll be done, let's go have a cup of coffee. And I said, oh, okay. So I went downstairs, I started walking around the block, and I wasn't looking where I was going, I just had my head down. And I walked straight into somebody, like, bam. And I'm standing on a pair of boots, and I look up, and I'm standing on Ringo.
Oh my God.
Yeah, in the middle of Beverly Hills, there he was with Barbara, and I literally was on his boots, and I apologized. I said, I'm so sorry, and I'm just so sorry about John. I mean, it's hard for me to even talk about it now, I know. But I turned to walk away, and he said, hold on a minute, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. I mean, I had never met him. I'd never met a Beatle at all. And he started telling me about his relationship with John Lennon, and how what was really pulling him through this whole thing was work. And he had this new album he was working on. It was really important to him to be able to focus on that, because that was really bringing him through. Yeah. And I listened, and I tried to take everything he was saying in, and I went home and I was thinking about it a lot. And a couple of days later, I got a call from my dad. And he said, I have this new show coming on NBC. I'd like you to come down, and I'd like you to become a writer on it. And I'd already said no to my dad, all the other shows that he'd asked if I wanted to be involved, because I wanted to do it by myself. Yeah, I changed my name. I wanted to make it just on my own. And I was going to say no. And then I thought about this encounter with Ringo. And I thought, maybe this is my opportunity to work. Maybe that, like Ringo said, maybe that's going to like pull me through or something. I can focus on it. And so I said, okay, yeah, I'll do it. So I started working at Paramount, and our set was right next to the Mork and Mindy set.
Oh yeah.
Remember Mork and Mindy? Oh, and and I ended up in a dating relationship with Robin Williams. And yeah, and he was going to New York, and he wanted to know if I could come to New York with him, and I was in the middle of filming, so I said no, I couldn't do that. So he said, well, if you get a break, then why don't you call my house and let me know, let the person, there'll be somebody staying at my house, and let them know that you're coming, and they'll give you where I'm staying. And I said, okay. So we went on hiatus at one point, and I call up his house, and this woman answers the phone, and she has this really thick English accent, and her name is Charlie. And she said, oh yeah, Robin said to be calling. I'll let him know you're coming. Here's his info. So I go to New York, and I'm with him, and he sends me to a club one time because he had an interview to do, and he said, I'll come meet you at the club afterwards. I said, okay. So I go in this comedy club, Catch a Rising Star. And I'm talking to this woman, and she says, "Oh, I work with some musicians, and here they come. Do you want to meet them?" And I said, "Sure." So these three guys walk over to me, and Laurence is in the middle. And it's one of those movie moments where everything like gets all fuzzy and fades away, and it's just him and me, and I forget all about Robin. I forget why I'm in New York, and I go out to dinner with Laurence, and we go back to his place, and I walk in, and there's this big Wings poster. And I said, "Wait a minute, that looks like you." And he said, "Yeah, I was in that band." So we were talking for a while, and he's telling me about this album that he was working on with Ringo. So that album that Ringo had been talking about, Laurence played guitar on it.
Wow. Wow.
And then we're talking about different things, girlfriends, boyfriends, whatever. And he tells me about this one girlfriend he had that was in LA working on an album, and she's at Eric Idle's house, and her name is Charlie. And I said, "She's not at Eric Idle's house. She's at Robin's house." Because I spoke to her right before I got on the plane. And so he started talking about marriage the night we met. And it was like this destiny thing. And yeah, so that's how I met Laurence.
Wow. That is incredible. That was the good suggestion. How did you guys meet?
That's how we met. And it was funny too, because my dad was a writer, as I said, and when he was he met my mother in New York. He was supposed to be staying there for a week, but he met her and fell madly in love with her and decided to stay for another week. So I called my parents after I met Laurence, and I said I was going to stay another week in New York because I wanted to be with him. And they didn't know why I was in New York or anything, but I said I'm going to stay another week in New York. And I hear my mom yell to my dad, "She's staying another week in New York." And I hear my dad yell back, "She's going to marry him." And my mom said, "What him? She didn't say anything about a him." And my dad yells, "If she's staying another week in New York, she's met a him, and she's going to marry him. You just watch." So it was like kismet. It was amazing.
Yeah. You know, when you meet somebody, that's the one.
Yeah.
That's what you say. And
it was also Beatle related. You know, I mean, it was like from John's death to Ringo to Paul's guitar. It was like so incredibly Beatle related.
Yeah.
And it's related with Charlie.
Yeah, Charlie.
The Brits have to do with it. You say. So then you went to write New Munsters, The Little Shop, and Elvira.
Yeah.
So
I guess I had a genre there.
I'm going to say Halloween must be your house.
Yeah. Yeah, I fell into that. And Little Shop was a cartoon, like was an animated series. So I started doing a couple of episodes for them, and then my brother happened to be doing the new Munsters, and then we were really good friends with Cassandra, Elvira, right. And so I guess I had this kind of spooky genre for a while, and that was right when I was having kids. So
that's wild.
Yeah.
When you started out, it was acting, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Yeah, I know. Sound issues. I'm hearing myself. When you started, it was an actress.
I was on the Brady Bunch, which was my dad's show, and right. I think that part of that was because I was the same age as the Brady kids, and I kind of felt very left out. Because I was, they were all like together and doing things and going to the Grand Canyon and Hawaii and all this kind of stuff. And I was at home, and I think it was a way for my dad. The first role was like, hey, we can get her involved. She won't feel so left out. But then they saw that I could actually hold on, I could do a scene. So when Greg needed a girlfriend for one of the episodes, my dad called me in and said, would you be up for playing Greg's girlfriend? And I said, sure, okay. Yeah. So I ended up doing Greg's girlfriend for a couple of episodes. And then they did one other episode. It was the very last episode ever filmed. And it was the one where Greg's hair turns orange. And Barbara, who was Florence Henderson's daughter, and I were the two girls in the beauty parlor. Now, why they gave me a different name, I don't know. I guess Dad didn't think people would remember that I had been in the episodes before as Rachel, but I came back as Gretchen, so there.
Rachel Gretchen.
Yeah.
Wow.
So now very slowly, because sound an issue today. You want to find comedy with Laurence.
Yeah.
So that sparked the Housewives.
That's right. Yeah. Because I had an idea for a girl group called the Housewives when I was in college. There was a group called the Waitresses. And I thought, wow, if I had a group, I'd call it the Housewives. And I started writing lists of song titles like Ironing Board and Call a Repairman and Be My Babysitter, you know, things that would be domestically themed rock and roll songs. And when Laurence and I got together and we got married and I immediately had a baby, and I was thinking it would be great to combine the comedy writing that I was doing with the rock and roll that Laurence had been doing. And I thought, the Housewives, I'll do it as a group. And so started writing those songs, and it caught really, really quickly. There was a time when we were doing rock clubs, comedy clubs, television. We were the house band on the home show. And there was even talk of like a series based around the group, and it's all in my documentary. You can you can always I have a documentary called Get the Dirt. It's the story of the Housewives, and you can check it out on YouTube if you're interested.
It should be brought by Swiffer.
Yeah. When we came to the rock clubs, we would come with our feather dusters and vacuum cleaners and all the props, and they thought we were the cleaning crew. You know, we'd come in and they go, "Oh, it's over there." I go, "No, we're performing."
That's fantastic.
Oh, fun. Yeah.
So in the middle of that period, you then also produced Lawrence's album.
Yeah. Yeah, Laurence had been working with another producer, and I would be listening to him developing songs, and I have a way of creative working that's I get a lot from doing improv, which is a very kind of positive, encouraging, you say yes and see where it leads kind of way of creating. Mm-hmm. And I was applying that a lot to Laurence when I would listen to him work on a song, and he said, "You know, you bring stuff out in me, and I want you to produce me." And I said, "Okay, I've never done anything like that before, but I'll give it a shot." And so we started working together, and I was producing him, and it worked out really well. And we're still doing it. We have 30 albums out. We just recorded another one when we were in London last month. We were at Abbey Road. And we went into Studio 2, which was really exciting. And we did about 12 of Lawrence's, his arrangements of Beatles songs, solo arrangements. And it was just him and me and the engineer. And we worked all day long, and it's going to be coming out as a vinyl. We're going to put it out on vinyl. It'll also be on streaming and stuff. And Laurence kept saying, "Well, what should we call it? Because we have A Day in the Life in there. Maybe we should call it that. But we also have In My Life." And then he said, "How about A Day in My Life?" So that's what we're going to call it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
In My Life is my favorite.
Mm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
It allows listeners to video their life.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So everything, just very Beatle related. And then there was the moment when our daughter Ilse was born, and because as I said before, we had John there, and we had Ringo and Paul, but we hadn't had a George encounter yet. But when I was pregnant with Ilse, Laurence was in the studio with George Harrison, and I really wanted to meet him. And so we made an arrangement that the next day I was going to go to the studio and I was going to meet George Harrison. I was very excited about it. And that night I went into labor. And I said, no, 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 I can't have this baby because I'm going to go in the studio tomorrow and meet George Harrison. But your babies come when they come. So instead of here comes the son, it was here comes the daughter. So went to the hospital, had the baby, and then the phone rings, and it's George Harrison. And he said, I hear you just had the baby. As soon as you're able to, I'd love to meet her, love to meet you. So Ilse was 2 days old. The first place she ever went was a recording studio where George came and he took her out of the baby carrier and he began to waltz with her and dance in the studio. And it was just magical. It was beautiful. And he was dancing and he was talking to her in like Sanskrit. And then he came over and he touched her on the forehead and he said something in Sanskrit and he handed her to me. And I said, well, what did you say to her? And he said, well, I was just enjoying the feeling of this new life and just feeling her energy. And at the end, I decided that I would really like to give her the gift of music. And so I did.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And she's she's the songwriter who's got her own CD out now, or album, or whatever they're calling it. And she's got a single out called No California, and she's been nominated for Grammys, and I think whatever George did, it took.
Yeah. If there are any voters, check out Juber.
Yeah, she's very talented singer, songwriter, and our other daughter writes musicals.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Unico, yes. She had been in tech. She was in marketing. She worked for Adobe for quite a while, and then at one point she just called up and she said, "I quit my job. I'm writing musicals now." And we went, "Oh, okay." And she had an off-Broadway show running in New York for a while. She's working on the next steps for that one. And then she had a show running in London for a bit. And that's what she's doing now. She's loving it and just dove straight in and never looked back. Good. Those are both girls are in the creative field now. Yeah.
Well, they certainly have a bloodline of it. So how do you keep up with all the properties, personas, projects?
How do I keep up with all the projects?
Yeah.
Well, the strike gave me a lot of time because a little picketing here and there, and I just have a lot of projects. I write almost constantly, and not as much as my brother. My brother Lloyd. He writes more than anybody I've ever heard in my life. He's like a movie a week. It's incredible. But he and I write together, and that's interesting because I'm working with my family, and he and I, we work well together. And I work also with a woman named Ellen Gillis, who is a wonderful comedy writer, and we write movies together. And I just get ideas, and when they're in my head, if I don't put them out, then they'll just keep running around in my head, and I can't get any sleep because there's people in there.
Who came up with the Brady Bunch White House?
The Brady Bunch in the White House?
Yeah.
Well, I had something to do with that. Yeah, because they were looking for a TV movie for the Brady Bunch. And it's the one Brady Bunch movie that nobody's ever seen. So
it's the greatest title.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was an interesting experience because in the middle of trying to get the movie done, Fox they quit the format, and there was nobody left there. And my brother was in the middle of filming it up in Canada, and the phone just kept ringing. And so he called the front desk and said, you know, I can't get anybody for the movie of the week, the TV movie people. They said, oh, yeah, we don't have a TV movie division anymore. So they had to kind of finish it up and get it out there. And it didn't get any promotion. But that's okay. We had fun writing it. It was.
Can you see it?
Yeah, I think you can see it there's like a DVD that you can get, or it's also in the collection of all the Brady. There's like a huge collection that has all the Brady series and the movies and you know everything. Because Brady has been pretty much everything, and as my brother Lloyd always says, Brady Bunch has been a lot of things, but over is not one of them.
That's always how the McCartney relationship to Americans.
Yeah. Well, I've always been amazed that there's this like Americana kind of the pop from America with Gilligan and Brady, and then you have Laurence having worked with McCartney and George and Ringo, and there's this like combination of pop from England and from America.
Yep.
We're at the nexus of that, I think.
A couple of people about the nothing we can do. It's fortunately.
Oh, the sound.
Yeah. Just like me that they're having host audio.
Yeah, I'm having that too.
Sorry.
But I'm trying to watch your lips, so I'm trying to lip read as we go along.
So I'm keeping. I don't want to make.
So when did the Housewives get nasty?
Oh, well, I had the Housewives, and once that particular group was over, I really hadn't thought about doing another girl group, and I hadn't thought about really having a group in the first place, and I don't really consider myself a singer, but I was in the gym, and it was right before the election of 2016. And I was sitting next to this woman, and she had her head in her hands, and she was like shaking her head. And I said, "Are you all right?" I thought maybe she had a headache or something. And she said, "No, but I can't stand him." And it was Trump on the video. I said, "Oh yeah, no, I'm there too." And so we started chatting, and she said that she was a songwriter. And I said, "Oh, I write some songs too." I said, "Have you written anything I might have heard?" And she said, "Well, you know the song Lay Down Sally?" And I said, "You mean Eric Clapton?" She goes, "Yeah, I was in Eric Clapton's band, and I wrote that song with him." And so we ended up becoming very close friends. And she came over, and I said, "You know, maybe we could write a song that encapsulates our feelings about what's going on." And she said, "Up for it. I'm totally up for it." So we started writing songs, and it was the most intense whirlwind of a project I've ever been involved in. It was really quite amazing. We wrote an entire album's worth of songs. It's all pretty much politically themed, and some of them are funny, some of them are not. And we Laurence helped produce it, and we put out an album called Resistors or Resisters. You could take it either way. And we got some really great reviews on it, and we were trying to think about taking it to the next level because it was getting a lot of great reaction, and the publicists were scared of us. They said it's too politically like a hot potato. We're scared of even coming near it, which I was amazed by, because you had these other, the Russian one, that they had their, and I thought, whoa, this would be totally appropriate. And Marcy and I, it was Marcella Detroit, also known as Marcy Levy. She and I wrote all these songs, and some of them were just I'm really proud of them. They're just really pretty powerful songs. And you can always find that. If you do want to check that out, it's at thenastyhousewives.com. But make sure you put the in there. If you don't put the in there and you just write nastyhousewives.com, I can't guarantee what you're going to see.
That's what I'm doing.
That is why. So what's on deck now?
Oh, just finished outlining another movie. I wrote a 6-episode kind of miniseries last year. It was actually dealing with my relationship with my father, and I started thinking about it a lot because my dad had been played by 3 different actors in movies that were dealing with Brady or Gilligan. I thought, nobody's ever done Dad's story, and it's a really interesting story. And right before my dad passed away, he asked me to come up there and edit his memoirs. So we spent a great deal of time together going over his, remembrances of like his childhood and stuff. And I started thinking that could be like an umbrella for this miniseries. And it goes back and forth in time and deals with my relationship with him and growing up in the creative family at a time when it was not always easy, especially for my dad, to think of me in the same light that he thought of the boys. And because my mom and dad were older, and my mom's feeling was I had the option of being either an airline stewardess, a nurse, or a teacher, or maybe a secretary. And that was it. Wow. There were no other options for me. Mm-hmm. And my dad kind of took that as he dealt a lot with my mother a lot, and so they were kind of in the same boat with that. And so it was hard for my dad to treat me the same way, right, creatively. And even in a creative meeting, we would be sitting there, and then my mother would yell at me for not picking up the dishes and cleaning up after all the guys. And so it took a long time for me to get the same kind of creative respect from my dad that I was hoping for. And so the umbrella of the project that I have deals with that, and my dad coming to realize that I had the same kind of creative value as other guys that he had been working with. And I call that project Created By.
Great.
Appropriate,
yeah.
That's fantastic.
Wonderful.
Working on that, when I rewrote another movie that I wrote with Ellen, and just have a lot of projects. They're doing my play in Arizona next year, which I'm very excited about because I've been involved in 2 productions of that play. It's called Without Annette. Annette, the girl's name, but also without Annette, And it deals with improv. It's set in an improv class with a teacher and all the students. But I had the idea that if you set a play in an improv class, when you get to a point in the play where the class is going to do a game or a scene, that you could really take suggestions, so there would be pockets of improv throughout the whole play that is a set play. And so my improv teacher thought it was a great idea. I said, "Do you want to write it with me?" And he said yes. So we wrote it, and we've had a couple of productions here in LA, and now it's got published, and now it's being done next year in Arizona.
Angie was a lemming.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Scary stuff.
Is scary, and you're certainly without Annette.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that issue today. We're going to very slow attempt. We wrote.
You get it in stereo, quadrophenia. Okay.
One,
two, three, 6, 2, 4, 6.
Wait till you hear it back. Okay. This is weird. On the space station. So, I'll do 3. Hope you
of
Brady
Bunch fame, creates a strip that carry her name. With wit and with flair. In the town air. Her talents burn bright like a flame that are
Well, thank you. I got the gist of it.
Okay.
I think people could actually hear me, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
All stuff will be cuttable fine.
Okay.
For some reason, they're giving twice. Anyway, fabulous.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I love watching you.
Well,
Thank you.
We'll get the audio clip.
Yes.
Okay. And I'll tell other stories.
All right, my dog.
Okay.
Okay, love to you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.